Every warrior in the 31st millennium who picked up a rifle, pistol or blade was dueling against their own reserves of courage, strength and endurance. They were dueling against their own brothers and sisters' courage, their capacity to stand and hold the line. After 30,000 years, warfare had come full circle. The sheer scale of humanity's conflicts disregarded, the corrupt reliance on automation as seen in the dark age of technology. Mankind was back down to swords beating against shields, and men entrenched with their rifles, where the gods of myth were Titan war machines and Baneblade tanks. In his calmer moments, Khan felt honored. He was living through a second age of legend, where the future's mythology was being written around him with each new victory. Those moments never made it into the sagas, but he saw no great art to war. And yet, he loved war. The Emperor, for all his supposed faults, understood war had come full circle. The civil war of the Horus Heresy drove demigods and noble knights to heights of barbarism never before seen in human history. Brother slaughtered brother in a conflict so devastating that the greatest empire to ever roam the stars would be sundered in less than a decade, its death knell rattling for millennia as old enemies rallied their strength to pick clean its carcass. For today, we shall elucidate a campaign enacted by two unlikely allies of the Traitor Rebellion, fueled by spite, jealousy, and vengeance. The rampage of zealots and butchers. The Shadow Crusade. In Guilliman's eyes, Lorgar saw a wealth of purest, depthless hatred. A hatred not formed from one action and one event, but a chemical cauldron of emotion strong enough to twist even the calmest, most composed demigod in the Imperium. Anger flared in those eyes, of course. More than anger, it was rage. Frustration tainted it further, the desperation of not understanding why this was happening, and the ferocity of one who still believes he might find a way to stop it. Hurt, somehow. Seeing the hurt in Guilliman's eyes was the worst of all. Also poisoned the mix and made it rancid. This wasn't the pure rage of Corax on the killing fields, the fury of a brother betrayed. This fury was saturated into something much harsher and much more complex. It was the pain of a builder, an architect, a loyal son who had done all that was ever asked of him, and had seen his life's work die in foolish, spurious futility. Lorgar knew that feeling, had known it since he knelt in the ashes of the Perfect City, the entire settlement destroyed by Guilliman's fleet on the Emperor's orders. For the first time in all the years of their wildly disparate lives, Lorgar Aurelian and Roboute Guilliman connected as equals. To his amazement, and the shock leaving him cold-blooded, Lorgar felt ashamed. In his brother's face he finally saw real hate, and in that moment, he learned a lesson that evaded him all these decades. Guilliman had never hated him before. The Ultramarine had never undermined his efforts, never hidden his sneers while presenting false indifference, never held a secret joy over humbling Lorgar's religious efforts in Monarchia and the Great Crusade beyond. Guilliman hadn't hated him. Not until now. This was hate. This was hatred in totality, fueled by a fortune of pathos. This was a hatred deserved, and it was a hatred that would see Lorgar dead. With the song unfinished, and the false emperor still enthroned at the head of an empire he didn't, in his ignorance, deserve to lead. The bearer of the word felt a sudden, burning need to explain everything, to justify himself, to tell how this was all necessary, all of it, to enlighten humanity. With the first crucial battles of the Horus Heresy won in the name of chaos, Warmaster Horus Lupercal's dream of usurping his father's role as the tyrannical Dark King of humanity seemed all but assured. Prospero had burned, the Emperor's Webway project lay in ruins, the Blood Angels had suffered heavy losses upon the world of Cygnus Prime, the Martian Civil War had erupted within the Sol system. The traitor legions had been purged of loyalist elements, and the retribution fleet of the Imperial Fists, Iron Hands, Salamanders and Raven Guard had been thwarted. Yet most deadly of all his adversaries to his grand scheme were the 13th Legion, the Ultramarines. The single largest legion comprised of 250,000 Astartes, supplied by 500 worlds within the Imperium's subservient empire of Ultramar. Should Primarch Roboute Guilliman and his enormous army mobilize, the traitor rebellion for all its gains would be imperiled. Their advance to the throne world stalled, if not halted, should the warriors of Ultramar intervene. In order to prevent calamity, Horus Lupercal appointed the Primarch of the 17th Legion, Lorgar Aurelian, to cripple the Ultramarines under the guise of camaraderie and collaboration. His fell atrocity, conducted within the Calph system, recompense for his humiliation within the perfect city of Monarchia 43 years prior. Laying waste to the immense fleet of Ultramar whilst trapped in dock, the Wordbearers plunged knives into the backs of the unawares and unarmed Ultramarines, slaughtering 100,000 Astartes before the 13th managed to regroup and repel their attackers. All-out war had been thrust upon the domains of Guilliman, for whilst Calph's surface burned from the radiation of its poisoned sun, further bloodshed simultaneously spilled across the length and breadth of Ultramar. Allied with the World Eater's Primarch, Angron, Lorgar had entrusted the Calph betrayal to his advisors, Corpheron and Erebus, while he and the Red Angel busied themselves with massacring the innocents of Ultramar. Known as the Shadow Crusade, this planet-spanning campaign wrought untold suffering and misery at the hands of the horde of the 12th and 17th Legions. Those not torn apart by the chain axes of the World Eaters offered as sacrifices to the ruinous gods which the Wordbearers worshipped. Enacting small raids and lightning strike assaults on fleeing vessels and mobilizing reinforcement contingents, Ultramar's 500 worlds began to dwindle, its once crowning jewels tarnished and broken beyond all hope of repair. Making no attempt to lay claim nor capture territory, the traitors added kills to their tally before withdrawing, the price made in blood upon agriworlds and lightly defended industrial strongholds, satisfactory to their ambitions. Each kill made in the name of the ruinous powers fueled the summoned ruin storm which now cleaved the galaxy in twain, the blood of millions feeding the hungering wound in real space to scatter and confine the loyalist legions. Yet as the Wordbearers fled from Calph, an anger of unrelenting fury burned within the heart of the Lord of Ultramar, and his legion's vengeance would soon be unleashed upon the murderers of their people.
3 generations of my line have defended this world. Our blood has watered this land, and in return it has fed us. The War Master shall not have this place, while any man or woman here yet lives.
Returning to his vast fiefdom to find much of its grandeur in tatters, Roboute Guilliman's legion now stood at half strength, following their bitter struggle of the Calph atrocity. Surrounded by the embrace of the ruin storm, much of Ultramar's planets were beyond all reach of salvation, the Ultramarines unable to breach the warp blockade, no matter their remaining strength. Those chapters of the 13th, unscarred by Calph, were nonetheless scattered across the stars, the 19th, 24th and 25th chapters, set upon by the traitors and their strange Abyss-class battleships. Captain Zadkiel of the Wordbearers attempted to unleash the firepower of his battleship, the Furious Abyss, upon Macragge, its gargantuan scale capable of shrugging off the combined planetary defense fleet of Ultramar's homeworld before unleashing virus bombs upon its surface. Infiltrated by a strike team, led by the Ultramarines captain of the 7th chapter, Lysimachus Cestus, with aid from the Loyalist World Eaters under the command of Captain Skral, Thousand Son Motep, the Space Wolf, Bringar Sturmdreng, and his Bloodclaws, this ragtag band of Space Marines thwarted the Wordbearers' plans, destroying the vessel from within at the cost of their own lives. Upon Astagar, the future Nova Marine Chapter Master, Captain Lucretius Corvo, staved off traitor assaults by the side of 600 of his men, his strategic brilliance costing the invaders 5 transport vessels of their fleet as the ground war on the surface waged. Targeting the demon-possessed Warlord-class Titan, which stood at the core of the invasion forces, Lucretius, alongside the Astagarian Light Rangers, pushed back the traitors with concentrated Shadow Sword fire, followed by a swift infantry counterattack. Upon Perceptum Primus, The Wordbearers devastated its ultramarine outpost within less than half an hour. The resultant grueling 163-day battle devolving from armored warfare to bitter hand-to-hand engagements. The final act of sacrifice, orchestrated by Chapter Master Decimus of the 17th chapter, rallying the survivors to make their final stand as the last remaining Ultramarines cruiser, Righteous Fury, bombarded the surface with phosphex. Knowing he and his men would perish in the blast, Decimus and his kinsmen charged into the fray, as both traitors and loyalists died in the blast to prevent the planet from falling into the rebels' hands. 100 Ultramaran worlds lay in ruin, yet among the most crucial that still stood was the fortress world of Armatura, a bastion of Ultramar which Angron and Lorgar invaded personally. Spearheaded by the warships Conqueror, Fidelitas Lex, Blessed Lady, and Trisagion, the traitors began their purge upon the fortress world of Armatura, their Primarchs overseeing the total extermination of 1 billion souls upon the planet's surface. The Ultramarine Evocati Division, Armaturan Academy Guard, Highborn Wardens, and Legio Lysander utterly devastated during their defiant yet hopeless last stand. Managing to ambush and bury the Red Angel beneath tons of rubble during their doomed resistance, the Armaturans defanged Angron's twin chain axes, Gorefather and Gorechild, during the fighting. Retrieved by his equerry, Khan, the 8th captain ordered his tech laborers to reforge the discarded remnants of Gorechild, its sharp teeth destined to rend the flesh of millions, as its keen edge is still felt to this day. As Armatura burned, several divisions of both legions launched assaults against hundreds of Ultramar's outposts, the bulk of the Ultramarine fleet cut off from communications, whilst its citizens cried out for salvation. Yet as Lorgar witnessed the rampages of Angron, the Rainmaker knew that the bite of the Butcher's nails bit deeper, worsening his already unstable temperament. His death inevitable should they continue to dig deep into his brain matter. The Aurelian sought a means to save his brother's life upon the Red Angel's homeworld of Nuceria. The origin of the fell Butcher's nails, which had been driven into the skull of Angron, it stood to reason that the High Riders of Nuceria must surely know a means to remove the cortical implants. Promising to drown the planet in blood, should its rulers not provide the means to cure his affliction, Lorgar convinced Angron to claim vengeance against his oppressors, now that he was unshackled from the oversight of the Emperor. A decision which would change the Lord of Red Sands beyond all recognition.
Let history mark my words well, for I care nothing about who sits proud on the throne of terror when the last day dawns. Horus is a fine commander, but that's the limit of my admiration for that arrogant, preening bastard. I join his rebellion because I can tolerate him easier than I can endure the abomination that names himself Master of Mankind. You want the truth of my life and death? I am Angron, the Eater of Worlds, and I am already dead. I died over 100 years ago in the mountains north of the city that enslaved me. I died after Deshea.
As the Wordbearers and World Eaters made haste for Nuceria, Rabute Guilliman's Retribution fleet tracked the traitors to the homeworld of Angron. Unsuccessful in their attempts to find a cure for Angron's worsening state, the traitors busied themselves with the massacre of the Nucerian people as the despondent Lord of Red Sands descended into bouts of nihilism. Hanging a bandolier of the skulls of his former comrades upon his armor, taken from the unmarked grave of the Deshelica Ridge, Angron paid his respects to the fallen gladiators who had once fought by his side. As the 41 Voidcraft-strong Ultramarines Armada arrived in system, the guns of Guilliman's cobbled-together fleet unleashed their broadsides upon the traitors, destroying Lorgar's flagship, the Fidelitas Lex, and attempting to board Angron's warship, the Conqueror. Repelled by the World Eaters and the Conqueror's shipmistress, Lotara Saren, the Ultramarines with their Primarch at their spear-tip descended upon Nuceria, their objective to kill or capture the traitor Primarchs, despite being pitted against the might of 2 legions. Pouring drop pods, gunships and landers upon the surface, the Ultramarines crashed against the traitor rabble with force befitting their legendary pedigree, as Guilliman's ad hoc flagship, Courage Above All, harried the traitor fleet. Veterans of the Calfatrocity still marked by cracked and burn-washed power armor, sought out any and all word-bearers to sate their vengeance, their bolters and blades purging landing fields of traitors as landing craft spilled reinforcements unto their positions. Hordes of World Eaters set upon the Ultramarines, their unrestrained savagery galvanized with the hymnals and chants of their word-bearers' allies. The wreckage of the Fidelitas Lex crashed upon Nuceria's surface, its carcass drowned within its oceans as Lorgar Aurelian and Rabute Guilliman finally met upon the field of battle. Exchanging bitter words before clashing, Lorgar's stature as the least martial of his brethren was compensated by the reach of his power maul, Illuminarum, the power fist and gladius of Guilliman striking at the Rainmaker as Astartes died in droves around them. Managing to land a blow with his power fist upon the Aurelian sternum, Guilliman staggered as a burst of sorcerous energy projected from Lorgar, Illuminarum crashing into Guilliman's head, fracturing his skull. As Lorgar faltered due to the internal bleeding he had sustained, Angron launched himself into the fray, his two-handed chain axe, Widowmaker, hungry to taste the flesh of the Lord of Ultramar. Drenched in gore and imbued with a murderous frenzy, the Red Angel hammered the edge of his blade against Guilliman's, the intense duel allowing Lorgar to witness the crucial catalyst of Angron's ascension. Landing a glancing blow upon Angron's armor, which released a skull of his former comrade from his bandolier, Guilliman unintentionally crushed it beneath his boot, sending Angron into new heights of wrath. Harnessing his terrible arcane arts to empower this moment of unspeakable torment into Angron's being, Lorgar chanted litanies to the Blood God as the ruin storm tore the skies open into a crimson wound. Blood rained by the gallon upon Nuceria as Lorgar's psychic power restrained Angron, the flesh of the Lord of Red Sands tearing apart as his apotheosis began to take hold. The last 19 librarians of the World Eaters Legion, untainted by the influence of the Butcher's Nails, attempted to thwart the Urizen's ritual, pooling their collective psychic power into a gestalt known as the Union. Wrenching Lorgar's soul from his body in an attempt to end his sorceries, within the warp, the Duel of Wills ended with Lorgar's total domination over Angron's very soul, transforming him into a demon prince of Khorne, who then rendered his librarians into ribbons. Pure in the eyes of Khorne, the World Eaters had finally purged the last remnant of their legion of old, the Warhounds, the lack of psychers within their ranks now allowing them to totally surrender to its will. Horrified at the transformation of Angron, Rabute Guilliman ordered a full retreat of Nuceria, for nothing of value could now be salvaged from this accursed world tainted by the influence of the Blood God. Purging the remaining mortals of Nuceria, the traitors rejoiced at their offering made to the ruinous powers, the ascension of the Red Angel, the true objective of the Shadow Crusade, and every innocent soul sacrificed on his path to apotheosis. Over 50,000 word-bearers, half of their fleet, their abyssal abominations, more than 65 titans, and even their flagship had been destroyed, and the World Eaters had lost 10,000 Astartes. Yet in the eyes of the traitors, a monumental victory had been achieved. 120,000 Ultramarines had been slain since their opening salvo of the Calf betrayal, 80% of their fleet destroyed, over 100 titans had been sundered, and untold billions of civilians had been slain. Yet most crucial of all, the Red Angel had been reborn into an avatar of the Lord of Skulls. The Shadow Crusade was over, and for the Word-Bearers and World Eaters, the Siege of Terra loomed in the distance. For with the favor of the Blood God at the disposal of the War Master, the Imperial Palace could not hope to stave off their final assault. The Primarch Beast turned to the librarians, the creatures that had pained him for decades, the warriors that had made the nails sing and his brain bleed just for the sin of standing near them. Now they moved against his brother, hurling their foulness at Lorgar, who crouched one-handed and wounded, down on his knees. The thing breathed, its maw cracked and stretched, iron teeth lengthening into rusted sword fangs. The butcher's nails were a thrashing, dreadlocked crest, hissing and buzzing in the rain. Each of them tasted a different doom. Vorius, eldest of all, was struck blind by his eyes bursting in their sockets. He died in a strange peace, not hearing his Gene-Sire at all, hearing nothing in fact, except for Lorgar's exultant chanting. He thought the Word-Bearer's lord was laughing, and indeed, he was right. Several of the others died from embolisms, brain hemorrhages, and in one case, Ralakas's skull detonated as though struck by a bolt shell, showering bone fragments and bloody grey ooze across his last living brothers. Those who sought to escape met the implacable forms of their armored kindred, standing vigil on the other side of the flames. Kaon crashed headlong into a centurion, lifting his bleeding gaze to the officer's visage.
Khan!
Hands gripped the fleeing librarian, his throat, his wrists, his shoulder guards. Kargos and the others hurled him back through the shrieking fire. He crashed onto the corpse mound, to lie before his Primarch's mercy. Angron's storm-cloud shadow fell over him, but the last thing Kaon saw was Khan, watching in silence through the flames. Esker was the last to die. He didn't know which of his brothers threw him back across the fire, but he picked himself up and held his broken axe at the ready. Angron towered over him. Angron, who was eating Kaon's corpse, an armored torso and one arm rattling down the Primarch's monstrous gullet. He even heard the muted hiss of digestive acid doing its corrosive work, deep inside the great beast's body. It was the roar that hurled him from his feet. Angron's eyes ignited in the sockets of that malformed skull, triggering a roar that shook the sky. It sent Esker crashing back to the ground, weaponless and aching from too many torn muscles for his retinal display to track in one scan. Esker rose again, scrambling to his knees, looking up at the face of Lorgar Aurelian, Lord of the 17th Legion. Viscous lifeblood bathed the Word-Bearer's serene features.
You should thank me,
Lorgar said.
Your whole legion should thank me.
Esker snarled up at the Primarch, all words failing him. A shadow draped over him from behind. Angron, or whatever Angron was becoming, was drawing close.
Blood,
said Lorgar, lifting his Crozius.
For the Blood God.
This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The treachery of Lorgar Aurelian could not have achieved results without the moral failings of his kinsmen and disciples. We as human beings are always susceptible to manipulations by those who wish us harm. For whilst objectives can be aligned, it is often easy for us to be ignorant of the larger perspective of those who view us as tools for their own ambitions. Be wary of those who offer vengeance or vindication as reward for fealty given, for often such a prize is laced with poison or future dismay. For only in forgiveness, reflection, and humility can one achieve peace of mind, and should those virtues be practiced, you shall guard yourself from the trickeries of others.